Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPenn.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. Episode 108, we got a good line ahead of Bellator 290 to UFC Vegas 68. First up, we're going to be joined by the Bellator middleweight champion, Johnny Eblen, to preview his first title defense against Anatoly Tokov. Obviously, won the belt last year in a dominant fashion over Gegard Mousasi. Kind of talked about how this fight came together. Obviously, it was Yoel Romero versus Vadim Nemkov. When that title fight fell off, they immediately put Eblen Tokov on. He says it was never targeted for this date, but he knew someone would come up, so he was always kind of staying ready, and he knew Tokov would be next, so it's a guy he's been ready for, so he wasn't too worried about stepping up on relative short notice to take this one and put up his title for the first time, but he's really looking forward to this and really trying to show people how good he is and possibly being the best middleweight in the world. We're then going to be joined by Devin Clark to preview his fight against Da-Un Jung. Obviously, this fight was supposed to be in Korea. I actually broke the news to Devin that the card starts at a very odd time, and he wasn't too happy. He was kind of figuring out how to fight at that time. He said it's obviously going to be a learning curve, but he's kind of ready for everything. We're then going to be joined by Kyle Nelson to preview his fight against Doo Ho Choi. The fellow Canadian and Kyle jumping back down to 145. Kind of talked about that because in our last interview, he said it was 55 from here on out. It's obviously interesting. He's back down to featherweight, but really good chat with Kyle as always. We're then going to be joined by Max Rohskopf to preview his Bellator fight against Chris Gonzalez. Max making his Bellator debut, obviously had that one UFC fight, picked up 2 wins in Cage Warrior since then. Now finally makes that Bellator debut after a canceled fight, which he was pretty frustrated on. What we opened up the interview talking about, and then we close things out talking to Adam Fugitt to preview his fight against Yusaka Kinoshita. Adam, coming off his UFC debut, lost to Michael Morales, a fight he took on short notice, a third-round TKO loss. He said there's a lot of positives to take away from that fight, but he kind of feels like this is official UFC debut, full camp, and he's really ready to show how good he is and pick up that first UFC win. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for a stacked episode ahead of UFC 284 and Knucklemania 3. All right, we're joined by Bellator's middleweight champion, Johnny Eblen, who's got his first title defense upcoming. Johnny, how's it going, man?
Great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously, this spot was obviously Yoel Romero and Nemkov, the light heavyweight title. When that pulled out, like, were you and Tokov already booked on it for a different date at that point, or how did this kind of come together? Because they all kind of came together at the same point.
No, I think we were booked. We were supposed to get booked at a later date since obviously Nemkov and Romero were going to fight on that card, but I think. Can't remember exactly when it was. I got word that, okay, hey, it's going to be sooner than we thought. They were saying maybe March, but then they're like, okay, well, we're going to put you on February, possibly February 4th. And I was like, oh, shit, something might have happened with Nemkov and Yoel. And it did. They got pulled. They put us in, and then, boom, now we're fighting on the forum.
Are you surprised it is Tokov? Because I thought there might have been a scenario where even though your fight was pretty one-sided, I thought maybe they run it back with Gegard just because he is a big name and had the belt for a while. Like, did you think there was a possibility of immediate rematch?
Nah. It was too one-sided.
Yeah.
He needs to get a win over a ranked guy before he can, challenge me again. Well, I gotta beat Anatoly and keep this belt first. So that's more what I'm focused on. But yeah, no immediate rematch. Kind of either thought it was going to be, I kind of knew it was going to be Anatoly because everybody else didn't really make sense. So yeah, now we're here.
What have you made of Tokov's run? Like on a very impressive winning streak, like undefeated in Bellator and finishing a lot of these guys too, not just winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, guys on a win streak, guy deserves it. He deserves a title shot. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and I'm ready to take him out of the picture.
Do you think you are obviously his hardest test though? Like you look at some of the guys he beat, like obviously Shlemenko is a good win, but I don't see many guys like with your kind of wrestling that he's fought.
Not my type of wrestling, not my type of striking either. I'm a well-rounded fighter, great athlete. I'm gonna put it on him, man. It's gonna be fun. I can't wait. I'm gonna overwhelm him.
Do you think after that Gegard fight, you're starting to get kind of the respect you deserve? Because whenever I talk to guys at ATT, they always mentioned how you would kind of become the champ and go on this lengthy title run. And going to that Gegard fight, I think a lot of people weren't picking you to win just because obviously Gegard's name. Like, do you think that performance was kind of that coming out party where people kind of finally realize how good you are?
Yeah, it was just my first big win over like a legitimate guy, and I'm gonna continue to fight legitimate guys and make them look bad and put on dominating performances and just solidify my name each time I win, and just continue to win, continue to win, continue to train hard, continue to master my craft and get better, and that's just the name of the game.
How do you think you match up against Tokov? Because he's a pretty well-rounded guy.
I'm just better.
Hmm.
He's good. He's good though. He's
Yeah.
legit. A lot of fights. Can punch hard, strong. He's like a fucking tree. I'm gonna chop that tree down.
Do you think he's your toughest test, or do you think that is probably Gegard?
Gegard, as of now, I couldn't tell you after until I fight him. Like,
Yeah.
It's one thing, seeing footage. It's another thing being in there and fighting. Can't really tell you until after I experience fighting him. Like I said, I think it's going to go my way regardless, and I think I'm going to overwhelm him with my striking, with my wrestling, with my grappling, everything.
Obviously, a ton of guys at ATT. Is it kind of the usual crew you're working with? Or you bring anyone else in for this fight?
Usual crew. The only difference is we have a few other Russians in. We have Ramazan. I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'm not going to try. But he's signed with Bellator at welterweight. And then been training a bit with Yaroslav Amosov, a bit with Dovlet. He's a 205er at Bellator. Been training with Roman all the time, training with Dalton Rasta here and there. George Masvidal, obviously. Even a bit with Sabah Hamasi, training with him. I forgot to mention him in a few other interviews. I forgot. He's on the same card as me. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I just train with a little bit of everybody. You know what I mean? But since Yaroslav's been in the gym, I've been training a lot with him lately. He's been giving me great rounds.
Then everyone kind of knows how good your wrestling is. Do you think because of that, like on the flip side, people overlook your striking, kind of underestimate it because of how good your wrestling is?
Yeah, I think some people acknowledge that I mix it up pretty well. It's like a hybrid style of wrestling and boxing, and some kickboxing in there too. But my style's evolved even more since the fight last summer, and I can't wait to show it to the world and show my improvements.
You may disagree with this. You might agree. I actually think your style is better for these 5-round fights because you can kind of break down these guys. Like, are you kind of happy now that you are the champion? You have these 5-round fights to really work on these guys?
Yes. My style is great for 5-round fights. Obviously, I have a great gas tank too. So as the fight goes on, it gets better. But yeah, my whole like I have power. I can knock dudes, but my style is more like I'm just touching you, wearing you out, grappling you, let you back up, strike a little bit more, or maybe I'll hold you down a little bit longer. I just wear people out with my pace, and I have great conditioning. So 5-round fights are perfect for me.
With Tokov, like that first takedown he shoots, like say you stuff it, like do you think that is going to be a big blow to his confidence if he can't get you down to the ground?
Yeah, I don't think he realizes like what it's going to be like trying to take me down. Like it's fucking hard. Good luck. Good luck trying to take me down. If you do, you timed it great, and kudos to you, but I'm getting back up. So you're not holding me down. No one's going to hold me down.
And then for you to have your first title defense on Bellator's return to CBS, like obviously a major network, like what's that kind of like for you, especially in the co-main event, like a big spotlight, a lot of eyeballs?
Nothing too different, to be honest. More eyeballs on me, sure, but same shit. I'm going in there, getting locked in the cage with another guy, and we're fighting for 5 rounds. That's about it. Yeah, nothing different.
Do you care that you're on like a bigger card? Like this is probably one of Bellator's better cards they've done or will do this year. Like obviously have a ton of big names. You obviously have Sabah like right before you. Like, do you care being on these big cards? Is it more just like you just kind of only worry about your fight?
Nah, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's an honor to be put on this card because they expect me to put on a performance. They're not going to put a boring guy as a co-main to Fedor and Bader. So, it shows that they trust me in, putting on a show. So thanks Bellator. Appreciate it. But yeah, no big it's the same shit, dude. Like same rule sets, same walkouts, whatever. More eyeballs on me. I don't care. I'll fight the same when there's 5 people in a room watching me, or if we're sparring and we're just getting rounds that day. I'll fight the same as if there was thousands of people watching, cheering, and it's on national television. It doesn't really care. It doesn't really matter to me.
With Tokov, like hasn't lost since 2016 or 15, like only ever been finished once, like pretty durable dude. Like how do you kind of see this playing out? Because obviously it seems like one that could be extended a bit just because of how durable he is.
Yeah, possibly. Fucking, I'm just gonna wear him out. I'm gonna fucking maul him. I'm gonna outstrike him, out wrestle him, and I'm gonna exhaust him. I think I could finish him. I think I could stop him. But if I don't, whatever. We'll go for 5 rounds, and I'll get my hand raised.
Do you think like you only need a couple more wins, and then people will just start talking to you or start talking about you as like one of the best, maybe the best middleweight, like Bellator, UFC, like no matter what, like promotion?
Sure, I'll probably be on the talk, but we can't, be for sure until I go into a different promotion and fight those guys, or maybe they come over here and I fight them. What have you? You can say all you want, but until you actually go there and fight them, you can't really say much. So I'm just gonna sit back, collect money, collect wins, beat people up, and let the people talk and let them have their opinions.
Is that something you'd like? Like obviously Bellator and Ryzen have a good relationship. Like they do that year-end card. Like that's something you would like to do, is like fight some of those guys in Ryzen, kind of prove yourself against some of the other best in the world.
Yeah, dude. I'm 1000% down to do that.
And then obviously Gegard and Fabian are fighting. Like, do you imagine winner of that is probably that next title defense for you if you get past Tokov?
Yeah, possibly. I just got to focus on Tokov and ripping his head off, and then once I do that, then I can focus on the next step, the next victim, the next opponent I gotta share the cage with.
I know you and Dalton train and like are close. Have you guys talked about like what would happen? Because he's getting pretty close to that top of the division fighting for the belt.
Yeah, I mean it's nothing new at AZT. Teammates fight each other sometimes, so we've had the talk. Might happen, might not happen. We don't know. Maybe I go up to 205. Who knows?
That is something I did want to touch on. Is obviously 205. Like Bellator does like to give people a chance to be a double champ. Like if you rally off a couple more wins, like is that something you'd like to do? Is try to come and kind of cement that legacy?
I think so. I mean, I think it's part of like it's part of the next move. It's part of being one of the best ever is being double champ. So possibly in the future, I just got to make sure I take one fight at a time and retain this belt first. I can't get too ahead of myself.
Just final thing, like what is kind of the goal then for you this year?
This year?
Yeah.
Keep this damn belt and put on dominating performances and be in the talk of like, damn, Johnny's probably one of the best middleweights in the world. I mean, I'm kind of in the talk now, but it's like, there's a lot of doubters, but I'm gonna keep winning and keep looking impressive, and then people are gonna eventually be like, damn, okay, yeah, I think Johnny could be, a UFC champ, or a double champ in Bellator, or, what have you.
Well, Johnny, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, we're joined by UFC light heavyweight Devin Clark, who's back in action and not going to Korea now. Devin, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going real good.
Obviously, when you got this offer to fight Dan Jong February 4th, it was supposed to be in Seoul, South Korea. Like, when did you kind of find out that it wouldn't be in Korea? Like, was it always like never for sure in Korea, or was it like just something?
It was pretty for sure because we had the tickets booked and everything like that, and hotel and all that. And then maybe 2 weeks before Christmas or something like that, I think we found out that it was going to be in Vegas.
Were you happy with that, or did you kind of want to go to Korea and kind of see that part of the world?
I was excited to go there, and yeah, definitely check it out. That's one of the big parts about fighting in the UFC, that you get to travel around the world, see different stuff and different cultures, and then at the end of the day, you get to fight over there, especially against a hometown, or I guess a home guy. So yeah, I was excited about it and excited for the challenge, but it's also nice being, in my backyard now, right in Vegas, and I've fought there so many times at the Apex that it's home court for me.
And then with Dan Jung, like how familiar were you with him when he got this call?
Not all that familiar with him. I probably saw him fight a couple times, but he's one of those styles that you see quite a bit. Yeah, striker, and he's tall, and nothing. I don't think nothing I haven't really seen before. We got to get against a few good strikers, and especially being tall as well.
And then with this one, like when you're supposed to go to Korea, like did anything change now that it's in Vegas about your training, or like when you start your weight cut? Because obviously it is a long flight. Like I know you always want to be a bit lighter on the flight. Like does anything change now that it's just in Vegas?
Not really. Keeping the same routine and everything like that. I wanted to be a little bit lighter for this fight, anyways. At this point in my career, anything that'll make the in-fight process better. I had a rough go my last time, so trying to change a few things, nothing too big, but anything that can help. So trying to come in a little bit lighter, but with the whole Korea trip, nothing really changed all that much except for the long ass flight. So
quickly on your last fight, like what do you take away from that? Because you fought a very tough guy, and I think a guy that people don't realize kind of how good he is.
Yeah, he's super good. But for me, I feel like I kind of lost that. I kind of lost that myself mentally. I had a few things going into the fight. I broke my pinky toe right before the fight, about 20 minutes before going out there, and I broke my hand in the first round. And both of those, yeah, they're injuries, but it was also things that I could have overcame, and I've overcome before. I've overcome worse stuff than that before, and I let it bother me too much, and I was thinking about those instead of actually winning the fight. So there wasn't too much time in that fight where I was actually thinking about winning. And me thinking in the first place is kind of what got me in that mode of just kind of sitting back and kind of hoping for a big shot to finish him.
Then with this one too, like with it supposed to be in Korea, it was like a chance to be back in front of fans. Now just at the Apex, like was that a bit disappointing for you, just going back there and kind of not experiencing that crowd atmosphere?
I don't really care at this point. I need wins, and if it's in front of a crowd or not, it doesn't matter to me. The last one in San Diego, it was a pretty good crowd, and that was the first time in a while that I'd been in front of a crowd. And it's the same disappointment when you lose, and for sure it's good when you win in front of a crowd and you feel the energy and stuff like that. But I'm all right with the quiet Apex and getting the job done.
You and Jung have two similar wins in William Knight and Mike Rodriguez. Have you gone back and watched his fights, kind of see how he fought those compared to you, or do you kind of not look at that?
Yeah, I saw the William Knight one, and it's a good, interesting one because I think he wrestled them most of the time, and that's a good good thing to see from him. Because he doesn't wrestle a whole lot, but he thought Knight was bad enough at wrestling that's the way he would go, and I don't blame him for that. So it's good to see that part of it, but it's hard to compare when other people fight the same guys that you fought, just from the different styles and whatnot.
Against you, like, do you think he's just going to keep it standing? Because like Ken said, he doesn't wrestle up. Like, he likes to keep stuff standing.
Who knows? I've been in a few fights where it's a striking guy and he game planned to take me down. Anthony Smith for one of them. He's usually in for a good brawl, and I totally had the wrong mindset. Thought we were going to brawl a little bit, and he took me down, and I wasn't ready for it. So I think that the important thing is stay ready for anything, knowing that Jung is capable of wrestling, but also capable of getting a good KO, especially in that first round.
And then at the Apex too, like the smaller octagon, do you think that plays much of a role in this one?
100%. That favors me quite a bit. I fought in that small octagon quite a bit, and me having a little bit more of a wrestling style and just the way I set up my striking and everything like that. I like the smaller cage.
I'm not sure you've seen it. Have you seen the times the card starts at for your event?
I have not.
So they're keeping it for Korea local times. Like the main card starts at like 1 a.m. Eastern. How do you kind of deal with that? Like getting ready to fight at that time? Yeah,
Yeah, let's go. I'm just finding that out, so that's huge. It's something to adjust for, but been fighting for a long time now, and you have to be ready to go whenever you're called. Be ready to fight, and that's what we'll do. We'll adjust to the time and stuff like that. I'm a night owl anyway, so I could easily get that done, and it's not going to bother me too much.
Yeah, I guess they felt bad for moving the card out of Korea, so they just kept it local for them and like prime time in them. So yeah, like Lewis and Spivak are gonna be fighting probably at like 3:30 in the morning on the East Coast, like 4 a.m. It's gonna be a late one for anyone that wants to stay up.
Yeah, that's insane. So like my wife and daughter, they're not gonna be too happy about that.
No.
They're gonna wake up and see. I'm sure my wife will stay up, but my daughter will try. But yeah, it's interesting. But that's part of the game. I part of me likes those little bit those changes that make things just a little bit harder for the fight, because that goes both ways. That's hard for him too, even though it's prime time, South Korea time for him. But he also, after all that travel, it's not really the same time at all. It's still dark, and you still have to adjust to that. So it's interesting.
Are you gonna have to like talk to some people that fought in like Korea or Asia to that, and kind of how they dealt with that? Like, are you gonna probably have to take a nap or something, or try to kind of schedule your day around?
Yeah, I'll probably end up taking a nice nap. I'm kind of excited for that, actually. I'm good at taking late evening naps and then being ready to go all night. But I've talked to a few people that had to fight out in Abu Dhabi and stuff like that back in 2020. And they said it was super tough, but I don't have to travel and do that. So I think it'll be all right.
Are you still out in Colorado doing stuff at Elevation? Is it still?
Yep. This is my third camp with Team Elevation in Denver. Yep.
Who are kind of the main people you're working with? I assume probably Curtis and like some of the bigger guys out there.
Yeah, Curtis, Zach Puega, Pauga. He's gonna get mad at me for getting his name wrong, but and then a guy named Vanilla Ben Timons is actual name. And we got some bigger guys in there. We have a smaller group of bigger guys, but we get at it, and we kind of join the whole team during the week.
How kind of beneficial is that move for you? Because obviously when you were at Jackson Wink, like it was obviously you and John for a large part, and then John kind of stepped away, and like I know there weren't a whole lot of big guys out there for you to work with. So kind of how big is that kind of switch been for your career where you can actually work with guys bigger than you and like around your size?
It's good. And we had bigger guys at Jackson Wink. That was never a problem, but they were really big, heavyweights. And kind of the same deal here, but they're just a little bit smaller besides Curtis. But the whole environment together is better for me. The teamwork and stuff like that, and just the coaches, Cody Donovan, Vinny Lopez, the way they work together, and then it's a lot more systematic with our big guy group, and it's something that personally I think I need, just a little bit more, little extra attention, being the smaller group.
Do you ever stay in touch with John or anyone from Jackson Wink?
Yeah. I talk to them every now and then. So.
Oh, so no like bad blood then, I guess, for you leaving.
No, not at all. I made sure to leave with a clean slate and no hard feelings. It was not a whole lot to do with them, but more about what was better for me. And I think most people understood, and I still talk to Coach Wink here and there. But it's so yeah, I'm still on good terms with everybody there.
And then I guess a big benefit too of training is Colorado is the elevation, which probably helps your cardio out a bit.
Yeah, and it's about the same as Albuquerque, so I'm used to that, and I'm glad I found a place that still has the elevation, which makes a big difference, especially when you're in the middle of camp and you know where you started. And me coming from South Dakota, before my camps, I get here and it takes about 2 weeks to really get adjusted. Then that 2 weeks goes by, then you can breathe good. But then after 4 or 5 weeks goes by, just in insane shape, and your body's working differently and at a higher level that a lot of people just can't keep up with because of the of what the elevation does for the body.
I'm not sure if this is true. I thought I read something that your dad's not going to be in your corner this one. Is that the case?
Yep. So we decided to go a different route on this one, and I think he'll still be there at the Apex, but yeah, he's not going to be my corner. Zach Fauga, he's going to be in my corner now, so I have a live guy to kind of warm up with all fight week and then right before the fight. And we're pretty much main training partners in camp, so it just kind of made sense. And you know, that we'll try to keep that same focus that we have in practice, in training, and deliver that in the fight.
How do you kind of see this one playing out then?
Well, I think I get control of him, control the cage, whatever, and then ground and pound in the second is how I see it finishing. Obviously, that can change in many different ways, but that's what I'm picturing right now. I think I'm very capable of doing that to this opponent, style-wise. So,
I know in the UFC, like, never want to lose or lose 2 in a row. Like, is there a thought of like this could be do or die? Like, you never really know with the UFC. Like, they cut people off 1 loss before. Or do you kind of not think about that at all?
I try not to think about it, but at the end of the day, I'm still fighting for my job every fight. You just never know. Now, I think this is only my 2nd fight on my new contract. So I knocked out William Knight, and I got a new contract after that. And then I fought the Russian. That was the first fight on the contract. So I keep going, you know, win-loss, shit like that. Had the 1-2 in a row loss, but trying to equal that out now and just win from here and try not to think about the negative things and know my capability and have that confidence going into the fight and going into the rest of my career. I'm about to be 33 in April, so who knows how long I can fight. I feel pretty good. Being a wrestler, I haven't taken a whole lot of damage to the head just because of my fighting style. But you just never know when it's going to be done. So you give it your all. And like this fight camp, it's been one of my longer fight camps for that reason alone. Just to get in that mindset and really focus in and get ready for this big fight.
Just 2 more things. Like, what do you think a win does for you here over Jung? Because this is a guy that just fought Dustin Jacoby, who was a top 15 guy. I think at that time he might even been in the rankings. Like, so he's kind of right near that top 15.
I don't know if it'll put me in the top 15, and it doesn't really matter for me because I know the path. If I keep winning, I'm you know, stringing 4 or 5 wins together, and we're in a different realm completely, especially at the light heavyweight division. Things can move so fast. There's only so many guys and so many guys delivering those finishes and those good performances. And that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm trying to elevate to is putting those good performances together, whether it's finishing somebody or just an all around good performance with my wrestling and my control and stuff that I know that I'm really good at and can take over this division with.
Just final thing, like, what is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like, fighting early February can kind of set you up to have a pretty active year.
Yeah, so I want to fight this fight, and then we'll see after that. It's kind of hard with all the traveling and stuff, so I'm not sure if I want to break yet between fights or, you know, but you just never know. If I go out there and this fight's a really quick fight, I might be ready to go in 3 or 4 weeks after that. And if the UFC wanted me to. So we kind of go off of that and then maybe take a break after that or something like that. But who knows? It could be a really busy year. It could be 1 or 2 fights. So.
Well, Devin, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We're joined by UFC featherweight Kyle Nelson, who's back in action in February. Kyle, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going great. Training camp's going really well. You know, we're a month out now. I'm really excited.
Yeah, obviously the big news about this one is going back down to 45. Remember talking to you after the Billy Q fight? You said it was going to be lightweight from here on out. What kind of change to go back down to featherweight?
Just the UFC. They called me up and they asked if I wanted to fight, and I was like, "Can we do 155?" And they said no. So because I think Doho's fought at 155 before, so like, oh great, we can both. He's been off a little bit. We just meet at 155, but they said no. If I want to do 155, I'd have to wait. And they didn't know how long I'd be waiting. And there'd be a new opponent and all this stuff. So I was like, well, I don't really want to wait any longer. I've sat on the sidelines a lot so far in my UFC career. So I'd like to just try and get back in there and try and keep the ball rolling. I feel great coming out of my last fights against Jai Herbert. I feel like I did really well in that fight. Obviously, there's room to improve. I should have finished him, but I feel great coming out of that fight, and I want to jump back in and keep the ball rolling and not kind of take a year off or however long off in between.
What do you take away from that fight? Because you obviously went up to lightweight, out into London to fight him. Like, what do you take away from that fight against Jai?
Again, just not to leave it in the hands of the judges. I was way too comfortable in that one. I was moving around. I was landing my kicks. I was kind of avoiding everything he was throwing. I had the majority of kind of the clinch control. And even when he did have me against the fence, I felt like I was doing the damage by landing knees and elbows and stuff. So I really, in my mind, I thought I had won a pretty clear decision. I mean, he was limping pretty hard. He was the only one with any damage. The only thing going in his favor was that really bad kind of takedown I shot in the third round where he was able to land in top half guard. But then he didn't really land any punches from top half guard. He just kind of, grabbed on and held on. So I maybe spent a little too long. Should have been a little more urgent to get up from that bottom half guard. Again, I thought I'd won the first two. And I did end up getting up from that bottom half guard and landing a couple shots. So I still thought with him not doing anything on top, I thought the third round would still be kind of in the air. But I definitely didn't see him winning the fight.
And then this fight against Choi was supposed to be in Korea. When you signed it, was it always in Korea, or at that point was it still kind of up in the air if it was going to be there or not?
No, when I signed, it was Korea. So we booked plane tickets, hotels, had everything lined up. My fiance Claudia was coming. We were going to stay for a few days after the fight in South Korea and do some touristy kind of stuff. So I was really starting to look forward to going to South Korea, and then everything kind of got switched up on us. But I mean, Vegas, I've been to Vegas lots. I've fought in the Apex before. I'm very comfortable with it. Obviously, a lot more comfortable with maybe the food and the time zone and not having to do that like 18-hour flight or whatever it was going to be. So, yeah, I'm definitely happy it's in Vegas. And again, we'll stick around. My fiance is coming down to Vegas. So we'll stick around, just do our vacation in Vegas this time.
Yeah, you said you're a bit happy there, but are you a tad bit disappointed you can't go out to Korea? Because not often they're like people kind of making that trip. Like, I'm right near you in Ontario. Like, it's a long plane ride, an expensive one too. So to get the UFC to pay for it probably might be the only chance you go out there.
Yeah, it was definitely, like Korea seems like a great place. It was one of the things that was on the top of my bucket list. So it wasn't something I was planning to do outside of this. But when we got this fight, I started to look into it a little bit and was, definitely getting excited to go over there. But I mean, there's not much we can do about it now. So just prepare for, Vegas and hopefully one day end up out there anyways.
Have you seen the start times for this event?
I've seen some stuff. I think from what I understand, it sounds like it's going to be starting a little bit later to try and accommodate the South Korean fans. I'm not sure what that means. I don't know 100% where I am on the card yet either, but I think the main card they were talking about starting at like 10 or something, or
it's 10 p.m. West Coast. It'd be 1 a.m. Eastern. It starts at the main card because they're doing it like for prime time in Korea.
Yeah, so it'll be pretty early.
Yeah, like fighting early morning, late at night, however you want to kind of look at it. Like, how do you kind of deal with that? Like, do you try to just flip your schedule and like start kind of waking up later, or like how do you kind of get ready to fight at that? Because it's a weird time. You're probably not used to fighting that.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, when we were in London, it was a slightly different time. I mean, usually all my fights, any fights are in a different time zone. I work with my sponsor, the Sport Lab, and we do like some sleep acclimation. I can't remember what the fancy words are, but essentially we just start training my body a few weeks out to either go to bed a couple hours early or whatever we got to do uh, to gradually dial my body in for the time zone and the time I'll be fighting at.
And then with cutting back down to featherweight, like, is that something you had to start the diet a lot earlier? Because I know you were kind of sizing up to be a lightweight.
Yeah, anytime whenever I get a fight, it's always I mean, I'm always in good shape and stuff, and I try to keep, the body fat low and stuff like that, even in when I'm out of camp. But definitely at 145, as soon as we get that notice, we need to, I get into the Sport Lab, we build the nutrition, we start figuring out, macros and calories and all that stuff, and then I kind of leave that to my fiance. She kind of handles all that for me. But yeah, as soon as we got this notice, we started the kind of the trek down to 145, but we definitely had a lot more notice. This would be the most notice I've had for any UFC fight, which I think was a lot of my problems at 145 in my earlier UFC fights, because kind of short notice. I'm a bigger guy. It just kind of took a little too much out of me to get down to 145, whereas now we've been able to do it a lot slower and more gradually, and I feel a lot better than I ever have.
And then with Choi, like, how kind of excited were you when you got this name? Because he is one of the more popular fighters on the roster, especially because his fight with Cub in Toronto. Like, how kind of happy were you when you found out you would be fighting him?
Yeah, I was really excited. I know he's gonna come forward. He's gonna throw some punches. It's gonna be an exciting fight no matter what. I knew when I was going into the fight with Jai, I knew he was more of a stand-up guy. But after I touched him a couple of times, he started trying to be a little more elusive and started moving around a lot. I don't think Choi is going to do that. I think even if I do hit him, he's going to try and come forward and get it back. So I'm very excited for that. I think that's going to lean into my style, especially with I think the power I'm going to be bringing into 145. That I think we'll be seeing him go to sleep.
And then what have you made of Choi's UFC run? Like, obviously started out very impressive, 3-0, 3 first-round knockouts, like looked like kind of a future like top 5, top 10 guy. Then obviously lost to Cub, took 2 years off, lost to Jeremy Stevens, then lost to Charles Jourdain, which is a bit of an upset. Now he's kind of been off again for like 2, 3 years now. So what have you kind of made of his career so far?
Yeah, I mean, definitely started off very strong and was putting together some nice knockouts. And then, yeah, the Cub Swanson fight kind of happened. It was a little back and forth. In those early rounds, he slowed down a bit, and then he kind of took a lot of damage in that fight. Then when we saw him come back, I think offensively he's still the same fighter, still very crisp. I feel like in the Stevenson fight, he was I thought he was winning the first round, and really even against Jourdain, I thought he was kind of being a little more technical and kind of outlanding him. And then just like in the second round, anytime like a big shot gets in, you can tell it rattled him now. And I don't think his chin's as strong as it used to be. So that's a big problem for him coming in with me, because I think I hit harder than Jourdain or Stevenson or Cobb or any of those guys. So still a great offensive striker, still a great martial artist. It's just, is he going to be durable enough to stay in there with me? And I don't think so.
Then how much do you think him not being active is going to kind of hinder him? Like, he only has 3 fights since 2016. Like, he isn't in there a lot. I know he had to do his 2-year military service in Korea, but then he could kind of had some injuries and some layoffs. Like, how do you think that's going to play a role? Just because, like, it is hard kind of getting your timing and everything when you're not as active as like you have or most fighters have been.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, I haven't even been that active. But luckily, I fought last summer, so I'm able to kind of that's still fresh in my head, and I can kind of keep rolling with that. So I don't think I'll have any ring rust. But I know with obviously with the pandemic and stuff, I had a lot of time off, a lot of time between fights. I was fighting like, I don't know, there'd be like a year in between my fights, and I could really feel it when I got in there. Kind of take a little bit for me to get back into it. And you just can't really train for that. Like, you can train your sparring, you can train everything technically and physically, but just to get back in there and to be in that fight and kind of, feel the punches coming at you, and then, kind of the urgency and the the weight of fighting in the UFC and whether there's a crowd or not, just, the repercussions that are going to come from either winning or losing that fight definitely is pretty heavy. And I know him, Choi kind of representing South Korea, he's going to have a lot of weight on his shoulders when he comes out.
You kind of mentioned a bit there. You think your power is going to play a big role. So like, how do you kind of see it playing out?
Yeah, like my striking, I think he's a very clean kind of kickboxer, very technical. But I think I'm also very technical. I haven't been in the octagon with a better striker yet. I think even with some of the issues I ran into at 145, I still felt like technique wise, I could stand with anyone in there. So, I mean, I don't get hit a lot. I hit hard, and I've got knees, elbows, kick, punches. I've got the full spectrum of things. Where Choi, he's got really good boxing, kickboxing's okay, knees and elbows okay. Wrestling and jips, he's more of a defensive guy when it comes to that stuff. So I think I've got him beat pretty much everywhere. I just have to be cautious of his boxing. And like I said before, I haven't really been tagged hard in the UFC yet, other than maybe the Billy Q fight in that third round. But that was 99%, kind of my body shutting down on me before I was even able to, try and defend or avoid that shot.
Then say you go out there and beat Choi. Like, what do you think this win does for you? Because like, even though he is on a 3-fight losing streak, like you look at the 3 guys that beat him were top guys. Like, what do you think this win kind of does for you? Where do you think kind of puts you?
Hopefully, it puts me right into another fight. It sounds like hopefully the UFC is coming to Canada a bunch this year. So, from what I heard, I think it was like three shows this year. So I'd love to do all 3. If I could fight Choi in February and then hop on the next Canadian show and get 4 fights this year, that would be perfect. I think with a good performance against Choi, I could see that happening, and I could stay at 145. I think a little more comfortably if I don't have as much time off. Just when I'm training and stuff regular, I tend to build a lot of muscle and bulk up if I'm not very cautious while I'm training, not in training camp. So if I know the UFC wants me at 145 and I'm going to stay here for a while, I'm going to have some fights, then it'll be much easier to keep my weight down a little bit and keep the weight cuts as easy as this one has been.
Yeah, I did hear they're coming 3 times. I know it's Toronto's one, and then probably like Calgary, Vancouver out west, and then I don't know where the other is. Like, what would that kind of be like for you? Because obviously you made the debut in Toronto on short notice against Diego Ferreira. Like, had a lot of success for it to kind of come full circle and be able to fight again in Canada. Like, what would that kind of be like for you? Because it's always a special time for all the Canadians to walk out.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they come back to the UFC this time, I'll be coming in, on a little more momentum, coming off of a victory over Choi, hopefully maybe 1 or 2 more fights, because I think Toronto might be end of the year, and then come in, as like a rising prospect at 145, and then again, kind of be able to show off to the Toronto fans, what they might have seen of me before my UFC career in the smaller shows that I just haven't been able to put together yet on the big screen. But bring that into the show on maybe a 2-3 fight win streak and put a big show on for them.
Just final thing for you, like, is it 145 from here on out then, or is it still like if a lightweight short notice fight comes up, makes sense? Like, are you still kind of open to that?
As of right now, it's 145. I'm not going to etch it in stone. Again, if something happens that I have a bunch of time off, then, and I'm a 155, like walking around basically at a 55 or weight again, then it might not be that big of a deal. But I do want to keep my weight lower, so I'm able to take kind of more short notice 145 fights. Because again, that's mainly what my career has been, like shorter notice fights. So if I'm going to fight at 145, I'm going to need to be able to do it on, 3 weeks, 2 weeks notice. So I'd like to stay there. But again, hopefully I knock out Choi. I kind of, put my name out there. And with that, hopefully it comes the perks of longer fight camps and more notice for fights.
Oh, well, Kyle, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, have a good one. All right, we're joined by Bellator lightweight Max Rohskopf, who's making his debut here. Max, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Can't complain.
Obviously, you're supposed to fight Mike Hamill back in October. I think it was the day of the fight or maybe weigh-in day. It got canceled. What kind of was the reason why that fight didn't take place?
Long story short, I had my MRI that I had to get like 2 weeks before showed something weird, but my doctor, actually 3 separate doctors, cleared me and said that was something that's completely normal. It's fine. No type of injury or anything like that. Weigh-in day, I had to get, the commission made me pay out of pocket to go get another MRI. And then that MRI showed that I was fine as well, but the commission didn't care and they pulled me.
How kind of frustrating was that for you then? Because everything seemed like you were all fine, just like, and then having to pay and then not even get paid to fight probably sucked.
Yeah. I lost my temper. Temper.
Was it too like just the fact that it's been so long for you to fight, just because like opponents haven't made it? Like obviously you're supposed to fight a cage wars against Eric Sanchez twice, like both times didn't happen. Like did that kind of add on to it that it's been like a year when you're supposed to fight Mike that you last fought?
I mean, that didn't add on to it. That just makes me a little bit more like anxious, but yeah, I didn't really add on to it. It was more just like, I really just don't like commissions. I think like they don't give a. They're probably all making decent livings. They don't give a fuck about anyone else.
And then with this fight, like when you're making your debut, like were you surprised they just didn't rebook that Mike fight, or like what were you kind of like? What did you kind of think was going to be next for you after that fight got pulled?
I thought they were going to rebook it right away, and they didn't. And then it took a little bit, but I'm not really expecting anything. The only thing that I've been expecting to do is just fight whoever they put in front of me, and it's been nice. I think that at least the 2 people that they've given me are people who are established in Bellator. They're not trying to like give me, they're throwing me right into the mix, and that's what I really appreciate.
With Chris, like what have you made of his Bellator run? Like he's looked pretty impressive, like beat Tokov, Roger Herda. Like when you look at his 2 losses there to Usman Nurmagomedov, is obviously the champ, and then go to Yamuchi, who's one of the top fighters in the division as well.
Yeah, he's fought a lot of tough guys. He's had a good run. I expect it to be a super tough fight.
Is this what you wanted right away when you signed with Bellator, is to kind of get thrown right in that deep end?
Yeah.
Why is that? 'Cause it seems like some people prefer kind of that slow build up. Where with you, like even your UFC, like taking on Austin Hubbard at short notice, like it seems like you're always kind of searching for that hardest challenge instead of kind of just building up your record, which you see a lot of fighters do.
That's what people think that's the smart thing to do. Maybe. It's I don't know. It just feels right. I just don't. It's not. In fighting, for me, it's not fun to be not challenged. I think you need to be looking to fight the best people that you possibly can. I don't know. I think that mentality might come from wrestling, to be honest. Because I remember being little and being not even that little, like 12, 13, 14, 15. And like I sucked ass at wrestling. I was so bad when I was a kid. And I remember just always trying to chase, like going to whatever tournament I had to go to find like the best kids in the state and try to like test myself against them. And then that's what I think the mentality I think that paid off for me in wrestling is that I was always trying to chase the best guys when I wasn't very good yet. And I was able to learn and figure it out.
And then you haven't fought since 2021. So like, what has this kind of time off? Because that's a lot of time in the gym to kind of improve quite a bit. Because that's obviously where you get the best when you're not or when you're just in the gym constantly.
Yeah. So where have I improved the most?
Yeah, like what? Like, do you like how hard do you think it is for Chris to kind of prepare for you then? Because like in a year and a bit, like you can change quite a lot of your game, and no one's kind of seen you implement that yet because you haven't fought.
I mean, it could affect his preparation a lot, or by kind of just like underestimating something, but it also could go the other way where he just prepared for everything. You know, I don't really know him, so I can't really say how it's affected him, and I don't really know what his camp looks like or anything like that. So, I mean, it could affect him, it could not. I guess we're gonna see on the fight date.
Do you worry about ring rust at all, or do you think because you're always in the gym, like it won't play much of a factor?
I don't think it'll play much of a factor. I think it's all every fight the same. You know, sometimes I think some people are going to be able to come out and keep their mind straight and focus on what they need to focus on, and sometimes you can't.
And then with Chris's fights, like his two losses are to heavy grapplers in Usman and obviously Yamauchi. Like, how much do you look at those fights to kind of see how they had success getting them down to the ground?
It's I take it into consideration, but it's also like if he's had trouble with that before, I expect him to be better at it now and be at least fixing it. You know, doing a lot of more grappling sessions or jiu-jitsu sessions or wrestling or whatever. But I try not to base anything based off of past results. I think every fight's a new fight. Anything can happen in there, and I'm gonna always try to implement what I want to implement in my fight, not really do what anyone else was doing.
Obviously, you talked about the UFC stuff quite a bit, and then you've obviously picked up 2 wins in Cage Warriors since. But is there like a bit of a chip on your shoulders because a lot of fans just kind of watch UFC and Bellator and they didn't really see what you did in Cage Warriors to kind of prove a lot of people wrong in this one?
In what one?
Like in this fight against Bellator, just because I know a lot of fans just kind of watch UFC Bellator and they don't really pay much attention to the regional scene. So is there like a thing to like just prove a lot of people wrong in this fight, maybe because they haven't seen what you've done since that UFC fight?
No, I don't need to prove anything to anyone, especially the fans or anyone that's ever said anything to me. You know, I think it's pretty funny. I think there's a lot of guys that I've even trained with that at the time of my UFC fight, they want to say a bunch of shit. They want to talk a bunch of shit and say stupid things. But those are the same. There's literally been people that I've literally made tap out like 15 times in a row who have talked shit to me. And it's like, you just tapped out. You just did the same shit. And like, if I wanted to, I could fucking snap your arm. I'm not being a dickhead about it. Or I could put you to sleep. Or I could literally stay on top of you and make you call me daddy, and there's nothing you can do about it. And there's those same people, like, especially the fans, like, you got any shit to say, come to Extreme Couture and I'll show you. Or you can see me train with some of the best guys in the world and you'll see it there too. But I don't really need to prove anything to them. If they want to show up, then I'll prove it to them. But they're professional fighters that were saying stuff at the time, but it's like they don't remember 2 years before that. I was literally making them cry walking off the mat. So
I think MMA fans too are the worst out of like any sport because you always get the tough guys that are like, oh, I could beat this guy up or I could do that. And then they don't really realize like how good you guys are and how you could literally beat someone up in like 5 seconds if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's those guys that don't really bother me as much. It's like the guys who actually know what they're talking about. For the most part, those are the guys that I'm just like. The biggest thing is like, dude, there's so many people that came out or just saying shit that I've literally trained with, who I've made tap out, and it's like I made you quit. Shut the fuck up. That's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And then being a part of this card, like Bellator's return to CBS, like a pretty big card. Like you obviously have Fedor's retirement fight. Like, what's it like for you to be a part of this card?
Other than Fedor Bader, I don't know who's fighting on it, to be completely honest. Everyone else has said something to me like, oh, the card you're on is awesome, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm focused on what I'm doing, what I have to do. Focused on making sure that I have one of the best fights in the card.
With Chris, like, how do you see this one playing out then?
No idea. I won't know until I feel what's going on. I could tell you if I had like experience with him or I've trained with him before, if I've seen him in person or whatever, but I haven't. So I can't really gauge what my skills are compared to his skills.
And then kind of just build on that. Like, do you think because of how good a grappler you are, like people just underestimate your striking and don't think you're a very good striker just because of like how dominant you are on the ground?
I don't think I've shown my striking in any of my fights. So I think that's pretty fair. When I'm in the gym and I'm sparring, I feel very confident, but I haven't shown it in any of my fights. So I think that's a fair thing to say.
Is that something you like, is kind of keep that in the back pocket and kind of keep people guessing until you kind of really have to prove it and show it in a fight?
Yeah, kind of. I think, yeah, it's nice to keep in my back pocket. I'm going to try to keep it in my back pocket for as long as I can.
With this one, like, where do you think a win, especially say you go out there and finish, Chris, like, where do you think that puts you in this division? Like, obviously Bellator is doing the lightweight Grand Prix, but like, you look at the guys that beat him are two of the top guys. Like, it is a very good win for you in your resume.
Yeah, I think a win puts me right there at the top, right there, like in the mix of things, not at the top, but like in the mix of things.
Have you kind of talked to Bellator about like kind of how this year is going to go? Just obviously with the Grand Prix playing out, like there's most of the ranked guys in there. So like, have you kind of talked about how this year is going to go? Just because all those kind of top guys are going to be booked in this tournament.
Yeah, I haven't talked to them about how it's going to go. I talked to my manager a little bit, but yeah, depending on how this fight goes. First, I don't want to get into all that without getting through this fight. I'm not going to look too far ahead.
I guess if everything goes well too, like maybe you make a statement and kind of put yourself in as like an alternate or someone that can just jump in if someone gets hurt. Because if you beat Chris, you kind of right outside that rankings for Bellator.
Yep.
And then just kind of final thing, like what is kind of the goal then for you this year? I imagine it's probably be pretty active after kind of sitting out last year.
Being as active as I can and fighting to the best of my ability.
Well, Max, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right, we're joined by UFC welterweight Adam Fugitt, who is back in action here in February. Adam, how's it going, man?
It's going well, man. It's going well. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, obviously second UFC fight, like first one, short notice. Like just kind of looking back on that, like you fought a really tough guy and undefeated guy, Michael Morales, on short notice. Like, what do you kind of take away from that debut?
You know, I just take away that I'm ready, man. I was ready to be there. I deserve to be there, and I'm excited to get back in there on February 4th with a very long camp and show what Fight Camp Fugitt can look like. So that's what I'm excited to do, and that's what I took away.
After that fight, like, is this about how long off you wanted, or were you hoping to return a bit sooner?
I was hoping to get in there sooner, but just wasn't in the cards at the time. I was waiting for the call, and this fight came up, and you know, I can't turn away the notice. You know, the amount of time they gave me, there's no way I can turn away this one and ask for something different. So, yeah, February 4th is my date, and that's it, man. I'm ready to go again.
Obviously, this was supposed to be in Korea. It's now in Vegas. When you got offered, was it still in Korea, or was it already moved to Vegas at that point?
No, originally when it was offered, it was in Korea, and I was super excited and to go over there and to be able to experience South Korea, experience what it would be like to fight in front of those kinds of fans. I would love to go over there and put on a show for those fans and really try to get a foothold over there in South Korea for the company. And, yeah, I was excited about that. It changed. It's at the Apex now. I'm not disappointed either. Way less travel time. Sure, the fans aren't going to be there. That's kind of a bummer, but it's another opportunity to showcase what I have, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and I guess it was an opportunity for you to see a different part of the world and not pay for the trip, make the UFC pay for it.
That is a benefit of the career path that I have chosen, is sometimes work takes you to new places, and I like to see new places. I like to experience that. So
with it just being at the Apex, like, you haven't fought there before, like, which is kind of surprising just because you see a lot of the guys that get into the UFC, it's like, are they the Contender Series, their first fights in the Apex? Like, have you talked to anyone about that experience? Because it is a bit different where you can like hear the other person's corner and there's not many people there.
Right. No, I haven't even thought about those things. I guess they will be able to hear my coaches yelling, and I'll be able to hear theirs. My opponent is Japanese, so I'm not sure how much the language will be recognizable. But at the end of the day, it's another fight, and that's what I'm gonna get paid to do. That's what I get, and that's the fun I get to have. So I'm excited to get back in there, no matter where it's at.
And then you get offered a Kinoshita, maybe that's how it's pronounced. Like, did you not know anything about him then? Like, is this just all like having to try to find all his fights online?
Yeah, I've done my research. That's another part of the game that I've kind of fallen in love with, is studying my opponents, seeing what their tendencies are, and trying to just come up with game plans, strategy. I was very much a brawler early on in my career, and just used to always focus on myself. But there's a lot more to this game than just showing up to fight. You should do your homework, and good things usually come from doing that homework. So yeah, I had to look him up. I knew he fought on the Contender Series, so I at least got to see that fight, and then I've seen a couple of his other ones, and yeah, I spent my time putting in the research on him. So I'm excited to get in there and compete with him.
Yeah, and his one loss is like a DQ for grabbing the cage. He really hasn't lost before. It's like,
no.
What have you made of his kind of career so far?
Oh man, he's a gamer. He likes to get in there, and he has a lot of trust in his hands. He's very explosive. So I'm gonna have to keep him in my distance. I'm gonna keep him in my distance and not allow him just to kind of dictate where the fight goes. Maybe frustrate him a little bit with being hard to hit, which I know that's a hard thing for me to do. It usually takes me one or two to kind of get woken up. So, just being greedy with my defense, and not giving him the opportunity just to march forward, march in. I want to make it a little tougher on him, and yeah, he's going to be an interesting fight for sure.
Do you think he has fought on the Contender Series, but that is different from the UFC? Like, do you think that is a benefit where you've kind of already seen that UFC fight week and like you kind of know what it's all about?
Nah. The first day I was in Dallas, I actually got to spend some time with Kai Kara in France, and it was cool getting to talk to a vet like that, and just to have him assure me, like, at the end of the day, all the glitz and the glamour and everything is different, but at the end of the day, it's still a fight. You're still here. You got a job to do. Just put yourself at ease and know that it's just like every other fight. You got to get in there, and you got to you put your performance ahead of everything else. And so man, he's already fought in the UFC as far as I'm concerned with the Contender Series fight. So I don't think you'll have any jitters or any worries at all.
I'm sure you've probably noticed you do have a pretty sizable reach advantage in this one. Like, I think it's like 5.5 or 6 inches. Like, how crucial do you think that's going to be for the fight? Where that is a pretty significant one.
Right. Yeah, it's I'm kind of used to fighting with my reach. That being said, I haven't always used it well in prior fights and stuff. So I'm definitely, in the last couple of years, I've tried to get better at fighting long and try to keep myself out of brawling. Since I have, for some reason, I have no problem jumping into a firefight, which, firefight's a 50-50 fight. You want to try to maintain and avoid those as much as you can. So trying to fight long has definitely been in my strategy in the last couple of years. Coming off a fight where I actually, it's one of the few times I've had a shorter reach. It was definitely different. So I'll be glad to be the longer guy again in this one, and excited to get back to utilizing that.
Obviously, your last fight was your UFC debut, but is there some thinking like this is kind of the real one, or you can kind of show everyone how you fight on a full camp and like have a full preparation for an opponent?
I've seen a little bit around social media. Like I've had a couple of fans reach out to me. A couple of people reach out to me like, we're excited to see what fight camp Fugitt could look like instead of 9 days notice Fugitt. And so I'm excited to bring that in there and show these show these fans what I can do with preparation. And preparation meets opportunity is kind of my philosophy. So I've been preparing hard, and even though the fight was on short notice and I thought I'm good, I'm ready, I think it's just going to be completely different with the amount of time that I've had this time, and so I'm excited to show that I can be different, and I can, with the right amount of time, that I can get in there and show out, basically.
You look at his career, like all of his wins except the Contender Series are first round finishes. Like, is that something you kind of have to be worried about? Or not really worried, but like be noticeable of? Is that like he is a fast starter? He likes to kind of get it going right away.
Right. You could say that, he's a fast starter. You can say, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I don't let it get to me too much. Again, I think with being able to do film study and prepare, it just puts my mind at ease. I know what I'm capable of. And as long as I go in there and I stick to my game plan and I fight my fight, then I see nothing but good things happening for me. And, I'm going to keep my range. I'm going to keep my space. He gets too close, he might find himself, on his back. I wrestle, I think as well as I strike. So I think I showed that to everybody in the Mike Morales fight, that I can take people down too. I won't be so in a hurry to pass guard this time, but I take it with a grain of salt. His first round finishes, it's still a fight when you got to get in there. So
I think to a lot of UFC fans, they might have started noticing you with that Solomon knockout. Do you think because of that, they just kind of think you're this power puncher striker and kind of forget about your wrestling?
Maybe so. It was funny because before the Solomon fight, it was, oh, he's just a wrestler. He's just going to take you down, and I can't remember how many fights prior to that. I think it was when I first started turned pro, is, oh, all this guy is a Muay Thai fighter, because I'd had 3 years of Muay Thai fights. And, so it just constantly switches. I try to look at myself as a mixed martial artist. I'm a melting pot. So let them think whatever they want to think, and I got something for them on the other side of the game if I need to use it.
The smaller octagon at the Apex, like, how do you think that plays a role in the fight?
What was that?
The smaller octagon at the Apex, like, how do you think that plays a role in the fight?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. They're kind of push the pace a little bit. I think it's going to, which is fine. I just think the smaller space is going to bring us together a lot sooner. And again, it's going to be on me to make sure it's my pace and my space, and not allow him to just, basically walk into his zone. So even though it's a smaller cage, it's still the same game plan. I just got to be on my, on my toes and have my head right out of the gate. Be greedy with my defense. We know he likes to throw that left hand, so just be ready.
Just kind of building off that, like, how do you kind of see it playing out then?
Oh man, I want that knockout. I'm not gonna lie. I want to and put on a show for the fans and show them that, you know, everything that I've been working on is, it's not just me saying it, that I mean it, you know, and I'm sure he wants that knockout too. That's the beautiful thing about fighting. So, that being said, I'll go back and say again, I'm a mixed martial artist. And if I, you know, see an opening to take him down or to get a finish on the ground or something, I'm definitely going to take it. You know, a knockout would just be, you know, that's at the top of the list, right? That's the goal.
Just final thing, like you get your hand raised February 4th. Like, what is kind of the goal then for the rest of the year? Because fighting this early kind of sets you up to have a pretty active year.
Right. You know, I'll just say the cliche. You know, if I when I get my hand raised, I want to get a quick turnaround fight, and I'd like to fight like 4 times this year. It's taken me like 10 plus years to get to the UFC, and I want to just soak up every little ounce of it that I can, you know, so get as many fights in as I can, and hopefully get I want to get that new contract with the UFC. So yeah, that's it.
Well, Adam, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much.